Okay, everyone. So tonight is getting ready Erev Shabbos for Shabbos Yisro, Parshas Matan Torah, and also we're the Shabbos following the Yom Tov of Tu B'Shvat, the Chag HaIlanot, the holiday of the trees, and it's also we're getting ready closer to the Yortzeit of the Rebbitzin, which is the 22nd of Shvat. So Thursday is Chai, so Shabbos is going to be Chof. So Sunday night is, I
Sunday.
believe, is the Rebbitzins Yortzeit.
Mhm.
Hold on a second. Oh, here we go. So Sunday night is the Rebbitzins Yortzeit for how many years it's been? It's been since Tavshim Ches. So L'chaim Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
L'chaim, L'chaim, Shakali,
So we have hold on, I just want to make sure that I'm not mixing up things over here. Hold on. Not exactly the mechanical person. I think I mixed up either way. All right. There we go. Okay. So here's Ariel is here. So this week's Parsha is Parshas Yisro. Yisro is following Parshas Beshalach. In Parshas Beshalach, right? So Parshas Beshalach, we have the the um, the story of Kriyas Yamsov, the splitting of the Red Sea, and in the splitting of the Red Sea, afterwards we have the Mechamas Amalek, the Battle of Amalek, and then we go to this week's Parsha where the Jewish people enter into Midbar Sinai, into the desert of Sinai, and they get ready to receive the Torah. So we mamish completed from Parshas Boy till Parshas Yisro. We complete the 49 days of the Omer, the 49 days of counting, of getting ready for Matan Torah. The Jewish people left in Parshas Boy. The end of Parshas Boy, they leave Eretz Mitzrayim, and they did a few travels from different various places that we learn about. And they come now ready to receive the Torah. And Hashem Moshe told them that after 49 days, which is why the Jewish people counted the 49 days of the Omer, of anticipation, of the excitement of receiving the Torah, because God told Moshe Rabbeinu when he was in Mitzrayim, in the first initial meeting with Moshe, he says, "Tavdin es Elikim al harazet." We're going to serve Hashem on this mountain. So the Jewish people know that they're going to receive the Torah, and they're very excited about it. Before that, we have a part of the parsha. First half of the parsha deals with Moshe Rabbeinu's mishpacha, his own family. What does it mean, Moshe Rabbeinu's family? Moshe Rabbeinu has a father-in-law, Yisro, that we learned about in Parshat Shmos. When Moshe runs away from Egypt, around the age of I think around 40 or so, he was around 40 years out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Midian, and he meets a young lady called Zipporah, saving her. Of course, he's a real gentleman. He saves her by the water, where everyone is, all the other shepherds are harassing the daughters of Yisro, and Moshe and Zipporah get married, and Moshe becomes a good son-in-law. He goes to work, like you say, he goes to work for his shver. He goes to work for his father-in-law, and his father-in-law's business was a good Jewish business. He was in the business of sheep. He was a shepherd, like his forefathers, like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Moshe Rabbeinu went right back to the Jewish business of being a shepherd, and he took care of the flock of Yisro, and he was there for many years. It says it's brought down somewhere. I think the Rebbe even mentions it. It's brought down, if I remember correctly, it's brought down. But it's definitely brought down in Sfarim that the sheep, the Dor Midbar, the generation that left Mitzrayim, they were the reincarnation of their neshamas were first in the sheep that Moshe Rabbeinu took care of by Yisro. That the Jewish people that Moshe took out of the desert, out to the desert, their souls were in the sheep that Moshe took care of in Yisro. I think there's a famous vart from Reb Zusha Anapali. Reb Zusha Anapali said that he was the sheep that ran away. Right? We all know the story that Moshe Rabbeinu was chasing a little sheep that ran away, and he chased it until he got to the burning bush, and he meets God. So if all the sheep had the neshamas, had the souls of different Jewish people that were through the time of the desert. So Zusha Anapoli says, I was the sheep that ran away. And so we have Moshe Rabbeinu has a real his father-in-law. And afterwards, Moshe made a deal with his father-in-law when he was before he married Tzipporah. Yisro said, listen, if you want to marry my daughter and you want to go into the family business, you want to take care of my sheep, then we have a deal. And the deal has to be is you can't leave without permission. Ramish, a proper relationship between a father-in-law and son-in-law. You have to stick around. That's the deal. The nadin is you have to stick around. You have to stay put in Midyan. So when Moshe Rabbeinu goes to meet Hashem on the mountain, and God says, you have to go to Egypt and let my people go, and you have to be the Redeemer, Moshe had to ask permission from Yisro. So he asked Yisro permission, and Yisro says, go. So, but on the way, it's brought down that Moshe, we all know that Moshe Rabbeinu took his two sons, and his wife with him to Egypt. He was traveling, right? We read in Parshat Shmos, Moshe Rabbeinu was traveling with Tzipporah, and the snake comes and swallows Moshe because he didn't give a circumcision to his son Eliezer. So the question is, what happened? Where did they go? Because this week's Parsha we learn that Moshe Rabbeinu is told that his father-in-law and his wife and his children, his two sons, are coming to see him. What happened? They were supposed to go with Moshe when Moshe went to Mitzrayim. So Rashi quotes that Moshe is coming to Mitzrayim, and like Hashem tells Moshe, his brother Aaron goes to meet him, and Aaron says, who are these people? Right? He sees Moshe traveling with a nice lady and two children. He says, who are these people? So Moshe proudly introduces his wife and his children to his brother, right? This is your brother-in-law Aaron. And this is your uncle Aaron, Moshe's two sons. Aaron says, what are you doing? Why are you bringing the boys here? Why are you bringing your wife here? We're trying to get everyone out. Why are you adding people? Send them back home. We'll call for them later. So Moshe sends Tzipporah and his daughter and his sons home. And after he comes now, he goes to the desert. Yisro says he wants to come see his Eidim. He wants to come see Moshe. So he comes and he says to Moshe, come to see me, come to see your wife, come to see your children. But Moshe goes out and he greets Yisro with tremendous respect. And Yisro was not just anybody. Yisro was a person the Gemara in Sanhedrin teaches us. Yisro was one of the G'dolei Hador. He was one of the great people of the generation. That when Paro sat down to scheme out the plan of turning the Jews, the Bnei Yisrael, into slaves, you have to understand, we read the story, and this has happened in our history over and over and over again. How things happen. At the moment when the things are happening, we don't realize how things happen. But when you look back and you say, how did things happen? How did Hitler turn Germany into such an anti-Semitic country with all these laws against the Jews? The Jews lived in Germany for 1,000 years plus. How does Spain kick out all these Jews that were part of Spanish society for hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years? How did these things happen? When things are happening around us, we don't realize, we don't ask questions. It's just like we think that's what it is. But how does it happen? It's not so simple for things to evolve. Right now, we're in very, very telling times in our history. There's a lot of things going on right now as we speak, as we're sitting here now for bringing, and we just don't understand. These are things that happen. It's not just so simple. There's meetings, there's pisgaot, there's gatherings, there's going to Amman, going to Turkey, and deciding a few things that could affect Jewish people's lives. The security of Eretz Yisrael, the security of Am Yisrael. So Pari had Yosef. Yosef was the great Joseph. He saved Egypt. The people knew who Yosef was. They had a tradition. Yosef saved Egypt. Everyone knew Yosef had interpreted the dreams. He planned for the survival of Egypt, that because of that, the world survived, the famine. And people knew about Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov came to Mitzrayim. And these were the children of Yitzchak and Avram. These were great people. Paro knew who Avram and Yitzchak were. Paro met Avram. Not maybe this Paro, but there was the Paro before. So how do you all of a sudden turn a nation into slaves? Not just slaves, into mamish belittling to the laughing stock of Egypt. These were people that were part of society of Egypt. They were part of the army, part. So it says the Gemara tells us that Paro sat down and he had a meeting, like always, all these meetings, right? He had a meeting. And who was at the meeting? The meeting was Paro, Bilam, Job, and Yisro. The four top diplomats of the time sat down and had a meeting. Paro called a meeting. He called a convention of the great leaders of the time to advise him how he's supposed to deal with the Jews. So Yisro ran away, Job stayed quiet, and Bilam says, turn them into slaves. The Gemara tells us. Job, who stayed quiet, was punished with Yisurim. Yisro, who ran away, was blessed that his children, who Yisro became a convert, and his children became converts, obviously, and they sat in the Lishka, they sat in the Sanhedrin. They became part of the high society of Eretz Yisrael. They sat in the Sanhedrin. The Gemara tells us, the Rambam teaches us what it means to sit in the Sanhedrin. You can't just be anyone who sits in the Sanhedrin. You have to have yichus. So it says that the Yisro, the Mishpach of Yisro, sat in Lishkas HaGazas. And Bilam, we know what happens to Bilam. Bilam stays an enemy of the Jewish people. And it's the Gemara tells us, and who is Bilam? Bilam was Mishpacha also. These are all people familiar to us, right? But Bilam was either Lavan or Lavan's son. He was family. These were his children. The Gemara tells us that Bilam was Lavan, or Bilam was Lavan's son. His family also, the scheming to hurt the Jewish people. Nothing's changed. So when Yisro, he's a great person, he comes to see Moshe and the Jewish people in the desert, and he says, Ati yadaiti ki gadol Hashem mikol halikim. Now I know that God is greater than all gods. Yisro was familiar with everything. Yisro was an educated, worldly person. That says, the Rashi teaches us, Yisro served every single avodah zarah, every idol, every way. What does it mean, every idol? What does it mean that he served every idol? He didn't just go into the idol shop and say, what's new? What's the new idol of the day? What we have, any new idols, any new statues that I could bow down to? Yisro is a person that was familiar with all different types of ways of thinking, right? What is avodah zarah? Avodah zarah is, by definition, avodah zarah is serving self. The avodah zarah is a reflection of yourself. You have your own interests, and you're trying to figure out a way that to magnify what you want into something godly. It's what you want. It's something that serves you. Yisro was very familiar with all different types of selfishness and self-interest and self-awareness, and mamish. How can I benefit myself with serving this way? What's another way to further my own interest? And it says, "Ati daiti." Now I know there's nothing else like serving Hashem. And the difference between any avodah zarah and serving Hashem is the bittul. Serving avodah zarah is about you. Serving Hashem is about God. And he said, he understands. Now I know what it means to have a life that's not about you, to have a life about a higher purpose, about serving Hashem, about dir b'tachtonim. So much so that it's brought down, the Rebbe quotes it many times in his talks, that the Matan Torah couldn't happen. The giving of Torah couldn't happen until Moshe Rabbeinu, until Yisro says, until Yisro, the idol worshiper, the one who is familiar with everything, recognizes Hashem. Until that point, the Matan Torah couldn't happen, because Matan Torah is all about, the giving of the Torah is all about bringing godliness down to the world. And in order to do that, it had to come from even the lowest places that realized, someone who served every idol, to realize that there's a higher purpose. There's an avoda. And Yisro comes, and we learn a few things about Yisro. Yisro is the quintessential father-in-law. He looks and he criticizes. So he looks at Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's watching Moshe Rabbeinu. That was a joke, by the way. He's not watching Moshe Rabbeinu, and he sees that Moshe Rabbeinu is very preoccupied in judging the people. Moshe Rabbeinu, all of himself over to the service of the Jewish people. And Yisro says that it's not sustainable. You can't be one person leading hundreds of thousands of people. It doesn't work. So Yisro goes and he advises Moshe to set up a judicial system where there's minor courts and larger courts and larger courts until the greatest of questions that can't be decided by those who you choose, Moshe. Moshe should choose. Find the best people that are qualified to be the judges of the Jewish people. And Yisro is again a person of the world. He was not naive at all. He knew exactly all the weaknesses and strengths of people, even people in position of authority. Yisro was seen it all. He was a seasoned diplomat, like I said. He sat with Paro. He knew exactly what he was looking at. Hello, Dr. Susan. He knew exactly what he was dealing with. And he tells Moshe to find exactly the kind of character of a person that you could trust to be a judge. It's not enough to know the law. You have to be a kind person. You have to be a person who's not a jealous person. You have to be a person who's doesn't have an interest in money. You have to have a person that is going to all the different qualifications that Yisro gave to Moshe to show these are the people that are qualified to be the judges of the Jewish people. It says Moshe Rabbeinu found people that had almost all the qualities, not all the qualities. And Moshe and Yisro is also, he says to Moshe, I think it's a good idea, and I would suggest you run it by God. I have a feeling God's going to agree with me. And Hashem does agree with Yisro. Moshe sets up the judicial system. The Rebbe says an amazing thing that why does Yisro have to tell Moshe something that seems obvious? I mean, anyone knows that you can't judge 600,000 Jews, never mind 600,000 people. I mean, how do you want people to one person to judge all the Jewish people? It's not possible, right? Everyone knows you need a court system. You have so many cases and so many issues. How could Moshe Rabbeinu expect to sit a whole day? And he says, Rashi says he didn't sit a whole day. He sat a few hours a day. The Torah considers that he sat a whole day because he judged the Jewish people. So how is he ever going to get anything done? So the Rebbe teaches that's an amazing thing, that the Jewish people, whenever they came to Moshe, they were overwhelmed with Moshe's greatness. Their petty fights didn't happen. We have a lot of pettiness about us. We come in, we get, we don't get a shlishi, we don't get a shishi, we don't get mafter. We have a yard site. We want to be able to make the kiddush, right? There's a lot of things that get people worked up. That's been going on for years, for hundreds and thousands of years. That people have issues. In Shul, the window should be open, the window should be closed. How high does the heat have to be? Too many lights, too little lights, too little. What should we serve at the kiddush? Right? All some kind of issues that are petty things. When the Jewish people came to Moshe Rabbeinu, they stopped being petty. Moshe elevated the people. Asher Noichi Bekir by Moshe brought purpose. He said, what are we talking about over here? The Rebbe once said in the Sikha, the Rebbe first became Rebbe, I believe, whereas before he became Rebbe, the Rebbe said in Sikha, he said that someone came to the Rebbe, the Rebbe said himself in the Farbrengen, so I could repeat it, that someone came and spoke to him in an hour about his car, describing the Rebbe his car. He bought a car. He's very excited, he bought a car. And he's telling the Rebbe this about his car and that about his car, and the seats in his car and the electric, maybe they just invented then the electric, the electric locks, the locks go up and locks go down. Remember the old locks, the little metal pieces that go up and down? He sat for a half hour or an hour describing the Rebbe about his car. The Rebbe says, I mean, how could you take up someone's time for an hour to discuss a car? Right? So here we have, these are small things. Moshe Rabbeinu elevated the people to find importance, to find what it means to spend your time, to be atzlach b'zman. So when they came in front of Moshe, there wasn't that many issues. Only the real important issues were people really brought to Moshe because they didn't feel comfortable talking about should we serve lakshan kugel or b'tei kugel at the kiddush, right? They didn't feel comfortable talking about are we going with Coke or Pepsi? So these are not issues that people spoke about to Moshe Rabbeinu. But Yisro said that's only when they stand in front of Moshe. When the Jewish people go back to their homes, then they start fighting about petty things again. So Yisro says, I see that you elevate the people to higher purpose, to be focused, but people don't stay focused. People get petty. That's just the way things are. And in order to deal with the people on their level, not how Moshe elevates them, so you have to have a court system. And Hashem agrees with Yisro. It says that Yisro, his contributions to Torah mitzvahs, and here's a person who, when he says he goes back and he becomes the first shliach. Where do we find the first shliach in Torah? Is Yisro. I mean, Avram Avinu does does work with Sarah. They make the converts on the convert Shechina, but they were the moving institution, right? Avram was first in Ur Kasdim and Haran, and then he makes his way to Eretz Canaan and Mitzrayim. Avram and Sarah were a moving institution, but that he sent someone from the institution out on shlichus. Yisro, I think, is the first one. Rashi says, why does Moshe send Yisro? It says the Parsha he actually uses the word shlichus. It says after Yisro gives a lot of advice, and Moshe is very thankful for his advice. It says, "Vayishalach Moshe chaysnei vayelech el artzei." Moshe sent his father-in-law to his land. Seemingly, it seems a bit rude. I mean, to read it just in the actual text, it seems like Moshe Rabbeinu was like, thank you for your advice, but maybe better go home. If Yisro would stick around, he would give more advice. So Rashi says, no, that's not pshat. Rashi says, "Vayelech el artzei ligayer b'nei mishpachtei." Moshe sends Yisro to go and bring the rest of his family to Yiddishkeit, to break the rest of his family, the rest of the people of his influence to become Jews. So Yisro is the shliach of his father, of his son-in-law. He becomes the shliach he was the head shliach to Minyan. And he goes and eventually, like we learn in Sanhedrin, his family become part we learn in Shoftim, and we learn in other parts of Nach. We learn about the family of Yisro. They kind of stayed with their own identity, but they lived over there. I believe the family of Yisro, I believe, lived in next to Jericho. It says Ir Atmarim. It brings down either in Malachim or it's in Shoftim about the Bnei Chayv of the sons of Yisro that lived in Ir Atmarim, in the city of palm trees. I was once doing a mifsayim I do sometimes. Now sometimes it's a little harder with the time in the winter, but I like to stand maybe a half hour, 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, even 5 minutes by the booth of tefillin in the shuk Machane Yehuda. You could get sometimes, if you work hard. I'm, not the best tefillin rapper, but if you're a good tefillin rapper and a good person to people, you can bring in, 20, 30 tefillin just on a Friday. There's so many people that walk by that are strolling. It's a good time. They're walking calm with their family. So I was standing there once, and I see a person. I wasn't sure what his origin was. I asked him if he would like to put on tefillin. So he says, "I'm not a Jew. I'm a Druze." I said, "Oh." I said, "Okay." So he says, and I wanted you to know. He goes, the Druzim, because we are the believers in Yisro. The Druze religion. The Druze are a kind of a people that live in the Golan Heights and also in the parts of Syria, in parts of the north of Israel, that are very strong citizens of Eretz Yisrael. They fight in the army. They're very loyal to their country, and it's an honor that they're part of the Jewish people here in Eretz Yisrael, part of society here in Eretz Yisrael. And so he told me that we are the believers. We follow Yisro. So I don't know what that means. I don't know how far they trace their origin to Yisro, but their belief is in Yisro. So he says, you guys believe in Moshe. We believe we stuck with the father-in-law. But either way, Yisro ends up becomes a giant of a person, and he's felt. His influence is felt till today, because the judicial system we have is based on what Yisro introduced to Moshe. And not only that, like we said before, that the Torah couldn't be given until Yisro says, the rest of the Parsha, we all know what is the rest of the Parsha. The rest of the Parsha is about Mountain Torah, the Jewish people receiving the Torah. Receiving the Torah was the height of everything. We spoke about this many times, that really we're introduced to the idea of the Jewish people getting the Torah. Only it's coded into Torah, but it only becomes revealed when Moshe Rabbeinu meets God by the burning bush. When Moshe Rabbeinu meets God by the burning bush, he says that I'm going to bring the Jewish people to this mountain, and this is the Jewish people are going to serve God on this mountain. And really, when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Paroi, he never mentions we're going to Eretz Yisro. On the contrary, he says we're going for 3 days to receive the Torah, to serve God. He never mentions to Paroi that we're going to Eretz Yisro. The Eretz Yisrael part is withheld from Paro. You could ask your local rabbi to give a lecture why does Moshe Rabbeinu say that to Paro and why does he only say 3 days? That's another discussion. But Moshe Rabbeinu tells Paro that we're going to serve God, and that's what God tells Moshe. We're going to serve God. So when God reveals openly that the idea is to receive the Torah, it starts with Moshe Rabbeinu. Before that, we learn about Eretz Yisrael. And we know about Matan Torah. Like it says, the Torah starts with the mitzvahs. Chodesh Lachem is the first mitzvah, and Bereishis, B'Shvil Yisrael, B'Shvil Torah Shnik Reishis. The whole world was created for Torah. Yom HaShishi. What does it mean? The 6th day of creation. That the 6th day creation connects to the 6th day of Sivan, when the Jewish people receive the Torah. The whole world is dependent on the Jewish people receiving the Torah. If they don't receive the Torah, the world doesn't exist. The Torah is not a part of creation. The Torah is the reason of creation. If there is no Torah and the Jewish people are not doing Torah mitzvahs, there's no purpose of creation. The whole purpose of creation is to have Torah mitzvahs. So that is something that we start to have in this week's Parsha. And it's Torah mitzvahs is not just things that we do. Torah mitzvahs is not just things that we do, because the person has to do the Torah mitzvahs as Hashem says. And not only that, a Gentile who does the Torah mitzvahs, it doesn't bring down what a Torah mitzvahs has to do. Gentiles have their things they have to do. The 7 mitzvahs of Noach. But the Torah, God said, God put into Torah mitzvahs his ratzon, his want. That through doing Torah mitzvahs, that there's only in how you do it and when you do it, in the right time, in the right method, in the right shiurim. Right? We have so many shiurim. Torah has all these things. You can't sit in a sukkah. Unfortunately, sometimes you come sukkahs in Eretz Yisrael. We don't want to say anything negative, but you see it in front of you. You could walk sukkahs in Eretz Yisrael. You walk down and you see a lot of sukkahs that are on the roof, under porches, meaning you have an apartment with a lot of porches. People build the sukkahs, but all the sukkahs are on the next person's porch. So usually they're not. I mean, in those situations, unless there's some sort of method that we don't see, but there's usually those sukkahs are not kosher. So why? Because they want to sit in a sukkah, because the children should have the holiday of sukkahs. Now I'm sure there's something there, but halachically that's not a sukkah. A sukkah has to be under the schach, under the stars, and a menorah has to be lit in a certain way. And tefillin have to be made out of, you have tefillin. If you go to the store and you buy black boxes and you put them on, it could be, you think you're putting on tefillin, but it's not tefillin unless the tefillin are made in a certain way. Tefillin have to be kosher. That's why we check our tefillin. Your mezuzahs have to be kosher. Mezuzah is not the idea that there's a box on your front door that identifies you as a Jew. Mezuzah has to have the parchment. The parchment has to be written in a proper way. That's all the shiurim of Torah. And then only then does it have the effect of tefillin. And only then are you doing the mitzvah of mezuzah. The Torah comes in, and in the Torah mitzvahs is coded in all the great desire and pleasure Hashem has in creation, that we're able to bring the great God into this world is through Torah mitzvahs. And that was introduced to the Jewish people in this week's Parsha. The relationship between God and the Jewish people, the relationship between Torah and the Jewish people, the relationship between human mankind and creation is all Matan Torah. The Rambam says, we have to make a quick mention of the Rambam, that this week also, we did a Siyam Rambam on Tu B'Shvat. It's a big deal. That on the day of Rosh Hashanah Le'ilanas, I heard his talk, the Rebbe spoke in 1989, the Rebbe said, today is the first day after Rosh Hashanah. The first day after Rosh Hashanah. Why was the day? It was the 16th of Shvat. So the 16th of Shvat is the day after Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because Tesvav, 15th of Shvat, is Tu B'Shvat of the new fruit. It's a Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara says there's a Rosh Hashanah. It's the new year for the fruit. It's a big day. And on that day, we finish the Rambam for the 45th time for those who study the 3 chapters and those who study 1 chapter. The 16th time, we completed the whole cycle of the Rambam. And it's a big idea. If you haven't tried it yet, now is a good time. Today, in America, we're on the 17th. It's only the 2nd day. You quickly go on Chabad.org. The first 2 days are easy. Tradition of Torah, the Masorah of Torah. But it's a huge thing. The Rebbe says the schus a person has to learn Rambam. I mean, the Rambam writes, it's called a Torah Kula. The Rambam writes that all you have to study is Chumash and my publication, and you study called the Torah Kula. So it's an idea a person should study the whole Torah. And in the Torah, in the Rambam writes that if a person wants a Gentile, wants to be from the righteous Gentiles that serves Hashem for their man, the way Hashem wants them to serve. So they have to do the 7 Noahide laws in a way that Hashem gave over to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. So Har Sinai doesn't just affect the Jewish people, it affects also the Gentiles. That the reason why They do the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, although God gave it to Adam 6 and he gave the 7th to Noach, like Rambam himself says, but it's the way it was explained through Moshe Rabbeinu from Har Sinai. So Har Sinai affects the entire creation. The whole world is dependent on Har Sinai. It's the way the world connects to God. That creation is not just something. Creation has a purpose. And every single creation that Hashem created has a purpose. Not only the human people, the animal kingdom and everything, every rock, every branch, every leaf has a purpose, has hashkacha pratis. Different levels, and there's different levels of hashkacha, but the Baal Shem Tov teaches God is watching every detail. And how does we connect every detail, revealed way to Hashem is through Matan Torah. So I just want to finish off, Chevra. First of all, this is a good week to take hachlatas. Rosh Hashanah, we know that New Year's is a time for resolutions. Even amongst the nations, people make resolutions on New Year's. So though this is a new year for the tree, and we know Adam ke'etz asada, a person's like a tree, and a person has, like a tree has good roots and a good body with strong branches and fresh, sweet fruit. That represents all the things that a person needs to be a person of substance in this world, to be deeply rooted in Torah mitzvahs, to be able to withstand any storm that may come our way, right? That we should be able to be like an olive tree that's mamish, deeply rooted. There's a shita that says the olive trees withstood the flood, right? It says that olive trees is brought down. That how did the pigeon find an olive branch? And that Noach knew that it wasn't just a floating branch. It wouldn't help Noach to know that there's floating branches. That doesn't tell Noach anything. But when the pigeon comes, when the dove came with the olive branch, Noach knew that the ground was dried out and already started to give off growth from the olive branch. Why olive specifically? Is because there's the message that the dove wants to show that it's better to have your own than to get from someone else. But also the idea is that there's a shita. The Rebbe quotes the olive trees is such a if anyone has been to Eretz Yisrael, I'm sure Reb Shimon has seen it as others, that the olive tree, the base of the olive tree is very solid. There's a very broad base and comes up so the olive tree stands very strong. That it's likely that even that olive trees survived the flood. The branches didn't, but the tree did. So this teaches us a person that if you're deeply rooted in Torah mitzvahs, even if you're going through chas v'shalom, a flood in your life, and a flood doesn't have to mean that you're drowning in water. You could be drowning in anxiety and drowning in stress and drowning in uncertainty, right? The marble comes in many ways. But if you're deeply rooted in, so then you can withstand even a flood. And that's one of the lessons we have from a tree. And we have to make sure that our fruit, we give off fruit, as the Gemara teaches us what's fruit. Fruit is Torah mitzvahs. How do we know fruit is Torah mitzvahs? Because it says that a person who's found dead by Egla Rufa, who's found motionless and dead in the middle of the road, we bury him in a place where it doesn't give off fruit. Why? Because this person could have given off fruit. The Gemara says, what does it mean, peiros? It can't just mean to have children. Because what happens if the person had children already, or the person couldn't have children? It means Torah mitzvahs. So like a tree has good fruit, you have to have good Torah mitzvahs. And we have to have a good base, and we have to have a good trunk. So this is when it comes to Rosh Hashanah of the new year, it's a good, which Adam Eitz Asada, we're like a tree. It's a good time for resolutions in strengthening our connection to Matan Torah. Strengthening in Matan Torah includes both the study of Torah and the performance of mitzvahs. And what's a better way to study the entire Torah? Shebal Peh, the entire oral Torah is studying Rambam. Because the Rambam himself says he includes the entire oral Torah in his publication of the Rambam. And today there's both text and visual and audio that you could listen to, fantastic shiurim from Rabbi Gordon and others that is in good English, simple English that you can listen to. And if you're not satisfied with the speed, you can make it faster, slower. So there's a good, and it takes 20 minutes a day to study one parak of Rambam, especially if you're listening to someone else giving a class. So it's a good time to start the resolution for Torah, connecting Matan Torah to the study of Rambam. It says, Mi Moshe ad Moshe leikam k'Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu who gave the Torah to Moshe ben Maimon, leikam k'Moshe. There's no Moshe in between. So maybe speedily that we have from Moshe to Moshe, from Moshe Rishon to the next Moshe Achrein, which is the Mashiach. We'll be Zoiche to the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'meher b'meinu mamish, through our commitments and our resolutions for Torah and the study of Torah and in the study of and mitzvahs, and l'chaim everyone, l'chaim, and happy New Year for the trees. Good Shabbos.
L'chaim.
So there's no class 11 o'clock tonight, right?
It is. I'm starting one in 25 minutes on the law.
Oh, there is. Okay, so another one. Oh, wow.
Take
So
care,
that's when
everyone.
now we have 10 o'clock classes too. Wow.
This is only on Wednesdays. Take
Oh,
care,
wow.
everyone. Take care, Lila Tov.
Okay, it's good to know.